You may have seen these iceberg charts going around social media. They depict a subject with more common knowledge about it at the top, and it becoming more obscure as you progress down the iceberg. I took it upon myself to make one about Bigfoot, so here we go. Level 1 is stuff even most people who aren't too interested in Bigfoot will still be familiar with, or at least heard of, so I won't spend too much time here. First off, we have Bigfoot sightings, pretty self-explanatory. All discoveries begin with observation, and Bigfoot is no exception. Next is photo and video evidence. That is, more evidence from people who are able to actually capture the American ape man on camera. We have footprints, which are common with terrestrial creatures, although with Bigfoot, they are a bit more significant, as you might guess. Finally, we have Bigfoot movies, which are fictionalized films about the creature, such as Harry and the Hendersons or Big Legend. So on level 2, first off, we have the Native American stories of wild men. Many native tribes in North America had stories of giant, hairy wild men that lived in the forest, just like Bigfoot. These were passed down through the oral traditions and cave paintings, and the word Sasquatch even comes from the Salish people's word for wild man, Sasquatch. Next up are the 4 types of Bigfoot. Like all animals, there are variations among these creatures, and it seems that in North America there are 4 main types. The type 1, known as the Paddy type, the type 2, known as the wood boogers, the type 3, known as the googwees, and the type 4, known as relic-hominids. Next up is the eyeshine. This is mostly reported in nighttime sightings, but many eyewitnesses describe seeing eyeshine from the king of the cryptids, hinting that they may be nocturnal. Finally, we have the Paddy film, which is the Citizen Kane of Bigfoot footage, and where the Paddy type got its name. On October 20th in 1967, Roger Patterson and Bob Gimlin set out to shoot a Bigfoot movie, but ended up capturing the real deal, and thanks to having a camera with them, fit for film, we're able to take the best shot footage of Bigfoot that we have access to. Kicking off level 3 of the iceberg are the various Bigfoot hunting laws that are on the books. Oklahoma has been in the news lately, issuing licenses for hunting the beast, as well as a $2 million bounty if you succeed. Washington State, on the other hand, has explicit preservation laws in multiple counties, although they may have been passed more in the interest of discouraging overeager hunters than keeping Sasquatch off the endangered species list. Next up is the Dogman. Well, it seems Bigfoot is the most famous hairy bipedal giant wandering the forests of North America. It might not be the only one. Described as a real-life werewolf, the Dogman seems to be related to the Sasquatch in some manner, but just how is yet unknown. Although most famously sighted in Michigan, the carnivorous canine cryptid has been reported in many U.S. states and seems to have a relationship with Sasquatch, described as unpleasant at best. Closing out level 3 is the Ape Canyon story. In 1924, a group of miners, diggers of precious metals, all over 18, were staying in a cabin in what is now Ape Canyon in Washington State. The story goes as night falls, a group of Sasquatch attacked them, leading to a pitched battle with the miners using rifles and the Bigfoot throwing rocks. The crew of cryptids reportedly left when the sun rose, but not before immortalizing themselves in story and giving the area the name Ape Canyon. First off on level 4 is the Bauman story. If you're eager to write off anyone spreading tales of the Timberland Titan as a trickster, here's one from former President Teddy Roosevelt. In his 1893 book, The Wilderness Hunter, Roosevelt recounted a story he had been told by a fellow hunter named Bauman. It's your classic hunting story. 2 buddies go into the woods together, one sets traps, the other gets attacked and slain by a Sasquatch. Roosevelt appears to present the story as fact, and since the words Bigfoot and Sasquatch didn't yet exist, he referred to the creature as a 2-legged beast and a goblin. Next up is the strange connection between Bigfoot and glowing orbs. That is, in many Bigfoot sightings and in areas with Bigfoot sightings, there are also reports of strange glowing orbs. Explanations include them being UFOs, some North American version of the fair folk, or even eyeshine from the creatures themselves. So far, no definitive answer has been given proving their origins. Finally, we have the missing 4-in-1 phenomena. Since the creation of the national parks in the United States, over 1,600 people have gone missing, often under very bizarre circumstances. Some have their companions look away for a few seconds, only for them to have vanished. Others are found in areas that would be utterly inaccessible to humans. Now, obviously, when you're naming a list of suspects, the apex of apex predators is bound to come up as a creature capable of this. Fascinatingly enough, the president responsible for the creation of the national parks? Teddy Roosevelt. Level 5's first item is a little more lighthearted than the missing 4 in 1 phenomenon. In 1975, the official Washington Environmental Atlas included Bigfoot as a creature to watch out for in the forest. Although the inclusion is most definitely tongue-in-cheek, Washington state does have the most Sasquatch sightings of any state, with 2,032 according to the BFRO. Next are the Bigfoot 911 calls. These are pretty self-explanatory. They are 911 calls that have been made regarding people seeing Sasquatch and feeling as though they were in danger. While they could very well be hoaxes, keep the following in mind. Prank calling 911 can result in prison time in the US, and if you listen to the recordings of those calls, if they're hoaxers, their time would be better spent accepting Oscars. The last item on level 5 is true giants. The phrase, "there's always a bigger fish," applies to everyone, even Bigfoot. True giants are mysterious creatures. For as little as we know about Sasquatch, we know even less about their big brothers. What we do know, they're a lot bigger than the strangest of simians, and a lot less fond of humans. Bigfoot will be 7 to 10 feet tall, true giants 13 plus. Get a Bigfoot angry enough, they'll tip over your car. True giants, if they smash the roof through with a boulder, I'd say you were pretty lucky. Starting off level 6 is Mindspeak. Mindspeak is a trait that I'm honestly pretty skeptical of, but is included in too many stories to be ignored. Mindspeak is essentially what it sounds like, some form of telepathy that Bigfoot are said to be capable of. It tends to be present in a lot of the interactions on the more positive side with Bigfoot, but others have described it as a method they use to instill fear in eyewitnesses. Next are the Mount St. Helens bodies. In 1980, there was a volcanic eruption in the area that is said to have claimed a few Sasquatches as victims. Reportedly, the deceased were carried out by government officials, with survivors allegedly even receiving medical care. What's interesting about the stories of these passed-on primates is that they're pre-internet and remarkably consistent. As far as who insured them for medical care, I assume they got some kind of compensation after being in all those progressive commercials. The final item on level 6 is the Bluff Creek conspiracy. This theory alleges that after the aforementioned Paddy film was shot, so was Paddy, as well as a group of Sasquatch. It states that there is footage of this massacre, although only frames exist. I personally am extremely skeptical of the Bluff Creek conspiracy for 2 reasons. First of all, the alleged photos are either discolored, giving the illusion of blood, or outright photoshopped, and a few days before his death, Patterson himself said he wished they had bagged the creature, if only to silence his detractors. We're kicking off level 7 with something that, even in an iceberg about the hairy hominid, is still pretty weird. I've mentioned the Patterson-Gimlin film a few times in this video, but I haven't really talked about the aftermath, or the real aftermath. Roger Patterson was more than happy to use the footage as a vehicle for fame and fortune. Bob Gimlin wasn't. When it came time to make appearances at conventions and such, Patterson found a workaround. He hired a man to impersonate Bob Gimlin. He would introduce him as Bob Gimlin, then they would make appearances, only for Gimlin's friends to eventually see this and catch on that the man portraying Bob Gimlin was very obviously not the real deal. Patterson admitted to this on his deathbed and made up with Gimlin. Many skeptics have confused this deathbed confession to have been that the film was a hoax, but this has never been substantiated, and to the end of his life he said the film was real, and so does the still living Bob Gimlin. Next are the Nephilim. In the Bible, the book of Genesis speaks of giants known as the Nephilim, born of the sons of God and the daughters of man. If Bigfoot is one of these creatures, that would explain why they are more human-like than any other known animal, as well as their seemingly superhuman physical capabilities. Closing out level 7 are interdimensional Bigfoot. If you've been watching this video and wondering why Bigfoot has been able to remain elusive for so long, here's a potential explanation. There are a significant number of Bigfoot eyewitnesses who report seeing the creatures disappear into portals. This might be able to explain why they don't leave behind significant physical evidence and why they're so hard to track down. As far as why photo and video evidence isn't of a higher quality, your patience is about to be rewarded. The information I'm about to share with you is the deepest level of Sasquatch lore that you'll ever hear. The biggest mystery of the American ape man is how it's been able to keep itself undiscovered for so long. Every time photographic evidence comes out, it's derided as unclear and blurry, with many pictures even being labeled blob squatches. What if I were to tell you that the real reason these photographs come out like that isn't because a person, often shocked and frightened by a gigantic apex predator that shouldn't even exist, walking around on two legs, that often knows where they are in the area, will have a hard time taking a well-positioned photo with good lighting using a smartphone's camera? The reason these pictures are blurry is because Bigfoot himself is blurry. Now, let's go capture the holy grail of graininess.